Alright guys, we're going to go ahead and get rolling here. I'd like to welcome everybody to our board meeting March 28, 2024. All items on this agenda are approximate. Consideration of items may require more or less time than is scheduled. Items on the agenda may be taken out of order. The public body may combine two or more agenda items for consideration, and the public body may remove an item from the agenda or delay discussion relating to an item on the agenda at any time. Public comment is designated for discussion only. The public has the opportunity to address the commission on any matter not appearing on the agenda. However, no action may be taken on any matter raised until the matter itself has been specifically included on the agenda as an item upon which action may be taken. Additionally, public comment may be heard on any item listed on the agenda. Persons are invited to submit comments in writing and/or attend and make comments on any agenda item at the Lander County Commissioners Board meeting. All public comment may be limited to 3 minutes per person at the discretion of the commission. Please note that the public body may interrupt the open meeting and exclude the public for the purpose of having an attorney-client discussion of potential and existing litigation, which is pursuant to NRS 241-0153B2. I'll call this meeting to order. Dee, would you lead us in the pledge?
Sure. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll have a moment of silence. Lander County Commissioners may break for lunch from 12 p.m. to 1:15 p.m. Any agenda item may be taken out of order, may be combined for consideration by the public body, and items may be pulled or removed from the agenda at any time. Commissioners' reports on meetings, conferences, and seminars attended. Dee, we'll start with you.
I attended a NACO workshop, and Nye County is working on this bill to help regulate some of what we're doing with the solar fields and stuff that are coming in. At this stage of the game, it hasn't affected Lander County that much, but I think when they get it done, we should look at it and possibly adopt it also. A lot of the counties are, because these solar fields, they have no plan for when they're done. They just get to walk off and leave them, and then we have to deal with them.
All right.
So,
Kathy? Okay. JR?
Nothing to report.
Mike?
Nothing.
Okay, great. We'll move into staff reports on meetings, conferences, and seminars attended.
Good morning, Commission. So for the Austin Youth Center, I did get plans, and they are showing us a rebuild. The one thing that it was missing is the bell on top, so hopefully we get that back, and then I can come back to you guys with what the insurance is going to pay on that and what it'll look like with the plans with the bell on top. We did have an energy leadership training again for some of our staff. Them are always really good, and anytime one of the commissioners would like to come to one of them, we would welcome you with open arms. It's a wonderful thing. I know that Kathy had reached out and said that she'd like to come to the next one, and we would like having any of you at them. So, the other thing I want to give you guys a quick update is I know out here on Carson Road we have a few complaints with people accessing their driveways with our new sidewalks we're putting in. And in that bid, we had tried to save money by not redoing the curb itself, just attaching to the back of the curb and pouring our sidewalks on. So Donnie's looking at some grinding options and some other options to put in driveways just so people can access them. In our upcoming bids, we're changing the slope of the curb so it's not as sharp roll. It's kind of at a slant. It'll still be the same height, but it'll be at a slant so people have a little better chance of accessing their driveway. But it was something that we did with the thought of saving money, and now it's not working out. Nothing has changed with the curb other than the sidewalk behind it, but when they see this, they're wanting some of them improvements to be done. Other than that, everything else we have is on the agenda, and I want to thank you guys again for the budget hearing. Went really smooth without Brian beating us up on everything. But it did go. It went really smooth, and we have a lot of excited people about some of the projects that are coming forward this upcoming year. Thanks.
All right, we'll move into our consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and may be acted upon by the Board of County Commissioners with one action, without extensive discussion. Any member of the board or any citizen may request that an item be taken from the consent agenda, discussed and acted upon separately during this meeting. Consent agenda material are available at the Lander County Clerk's Office for viewing, and copies are available for a nominal charge. 1, approval of March 28th, 2024 agenda notice. 2, approval of February 22nd, 2024 meeting minutes. 3, approval of March 14th, 2024 meeting minutes. 4, approval of payroll change requests.
Okay,
We need to withhold check number 223.
Well, we're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
So can I have a motion on the consent agenda? We should have items 1, 2, and 4, I believe. Actually, there are, let me see here.
1, 2, and 4.
No, just 1, 2, and, just 1 and 2.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we approve agenda items 1 and 2.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll move into item 1, for discussion and possible action to disapprove the payment of bills, credit card, payment of bills.
Yeah, we need to withhold check number 223220.
Okay, can we have a motion on the remainder?
Aside from those, I'll make a motion that we pay the remaining bills.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, been motioned and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Now we need to make a motion to approve the check number 223220.
So moved.
okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and I will abstain. It's made to my employer. Okay, so we'll move into items 1.2, which we're going to table this item and the next item, which is 1.3, based on some information that I received this morning that shed a little bit of light on the situation. So on November 22nd, 2018, of the agenda, item 9, it read, discussion and possible action requesting Lander County Board of Commissioners to modify Lander County Code 8.45.030 and 8.46.030 to allow for a medical recreational marijuana dispensary establishment in Lander County and all matters related to. That item was put to motion and seconded, and by a majority was passed. So what we've been doing is kind of moot. So at this point, we're going to get with our district attorney's office to see what path that we take forward. So we will be tabling those 2 items, and we'll be agendizing the proper item later on a future agenda. So we'll be moving into 1.4 for discussion and possible action after receiving an update from Joseph McGinley with UES on Battle Mountain Liquid Hydrogen Facility Environmental Statement, third-party review, findings, and recommendations. Good morning.
Morning. Am I
It's
on?
on for you.
It's on, okay. Good morning, Mr. Commissioner, or Mr. Chairman, and the rest of the commission. For the record, my name is Joe McGinley. I'm a principal engineer with UES Engineering based out of the Reno office. We also have a UES Las Vegas office. By way of background, I am a professional engineer in the state of Nevada, professional geologist in California, and a Nevada certified environmental manager. I am the former owner of McGinley & Associates. It was an environmental consulting company based here in Nevada for over 20 years. We've done several projects here in Battle Mountain and throughout the state. In June of 2021, I sold the company to UES, hence I am a principal with UES. UES is a geotechnical, environmental, and construction materials testing firm. They have over 4,000 people with 85 offices. The environmental services that UES currently offers include property due diligence remediation, hydrogeology, or the study of groundwater, air modeling, permitting, soil and groundwater investigations, NEPA, which is the National Environmental Protection Act, brownfields work, and GIS and drone services. Bert has asked me recently to take a look at 2 aspects of the proposed liquid nitrogen facility for this area. And I say 2 aspects because the first aspect was what are the actual environmental impacts that this facility may have on the environment. And the second, which I think is a very important aspect, is the potential for highly hazardous substance release or an explosion. So my third-party review looked at both those things. With respect to the environmental impacts, the applicant retained UES out of Las Vegas to prepare an environmental statement report. And I'm not sure if everybody's had the opportunity to review that, but this is a copy of the report which we can provide to the commission. In that report, they looked at a number of things. They looked at geology, water resources, air quality and climate, biology resources, cultural resources, land use and recreation, transportation, visual resources, noise, waste management and hazardous materials, and socioeconomics. I did a third-party review of that report, and in a nutshell, for the most part, there were no significant impacts identified. There were some recommended mitigating efforts, for example, during construction of the facility, that best management practices be implemented to control dust and stormwater runoff and those sorts of things. With respect to the hazardous substance release or explosions, a little bit of background. There's been 3 major explosions at facilities in the state of Nevada. The first one occurred in 1988 at the Petcon facility in Henderson, Nevada. The second one was a chlorine facility, also in Henderson, Nevada. And then most recently, the Sierra Chemical facility outside Mustang. Ironically, I was in Las Vegas in 1988 when the Petcon thing exploded, and it rattled that entire valley. It was pretty massive. In response, the Nevada legislatures got together and said we need to protect the public, the workers at these facilities, and natural resources. So they developed what is called the Nevada Chemical Action Prevention Program, CAP. And the CAP basically is a permit for facilities that produces, stores, or uses hazardous chemicals which exceed certain thresholds. And under the CAP program, there's 2 permits they have to get. They have to get a construction permit and a permit to operate. When I first looked at this, I got in contact with the people that prepared the environmental statement and said, do they exceed these thresholds? Because they're going to have hydrogen at this facility, and hydrogen can be very, very volatile. So do they exceed the threshold for hydrogen where they fall under CAP? And originally, nobody could answer the question. Yesterday morning, I did get a hold of the CEO of the proponent, and he said, based on their calculations, they feel that they will exceed the thresholds, which will put them into the CAP program. Okay? Now, what does that mean for you? Basically, the CAP program is a very, very rigorous process where the engineering of the facility is reviewed by the Nevada Division of Environmental Protection with their engineers. It's extensive. Sometimes they use third parties to help them with the review, but they go over every component of the facility. And secondly, as part of the operating process, they have to put together an emergency response plan. They have to put together a worker training program and a community right to know program. Okay? So the gentleman I talked with yesterday was Tyler Borosh. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correct, but he is the founder and CEO of T2 Solar System, which I understand is the applicant. So in a nutshell, what does this mean to Lander County? If I was in your position, I would want to make darn sure that this facility isn't going to replicate what's happened at the other 3 facilities and blow up. If they fall under the CAP program, which we, again, were verbally informed yesterday that they do, that increases your level of protection out here because the scrutiny, again, not to be redundant, but it is very, very rigorous. So in a way, I think I'm bringing good news that if they fall under this CAP program, it's a solid step to protect the citizens of Lander County and the environment. So with that, I have handed out a brochure. It's a 1-page flyer produced by NDEP, which has some additional detail on the CAP program. So if there are any questions, I'm not a CAP expert. I have been around a number of geothermal plants and other facilities that have gone through the CAP process, so I have a working understanding of it. But no means would I want to sit here and pretend that I'm an expert on the program itself. But I'm welcome to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Okay, thank you. So we'll start with the commission. Are there any questions?
Other than, if I'm understanding this right, this is just a better protection, having it fall under CAP is just a better for us, making sure that
In my
all
opinion,
the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted.
absolutely, ma'am. In my opinion, it is much better for you.
Okay.
If they did not fall under CAP, My recommendation to the county would have been to retain a CAP expert as a consultant and go over all their plans to ensure that they didn't fall under CAP, and then provide an opinion from that expert that this thing would operate at the same level of safety.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions from the commission? Okay, so we'll open it up for questions in the public. Yeah, if you have questions, could please come to the front and state your name for the record.
My name is Jerry Annis. Thank you for the opportunity to ask a quick question. As most of you know, have recently retired from Ormat Geothermal, which does always fall under the CAP ordinances. So I have a lot of experience going through those. And I will tell you, they're great, but they're not perfect, and there's no guarantee. My question is, and it doesn't sound like you'll be able to answer it at this meeting, but what's the amount of material that you're going to have at this site, and as a result, what is the blast zone? How many miles, quarter miles, half miles are going to be demolished if this plant should happen to experience a catastrophic event? And again, I will say CAP is a good program, takes a lot of attention to detail, but it is not a guarantee.
Right.
Thank
Agreed. Thank you. Good questions. Right now, I don't know how much hydrogen they're going to be storing out there and using. When I originally contacted, they didn't know. And now they came back and said, yes, based on our calculations, we do feel we are going to exceed the threshold and will fall under CAP. As part of the CAP process, they need to know that amount to do the modeling and whatnot to come up with what the blast zones would be. So very good questions, but I think today they can't be answered.
Joseph, maybe you can clarify, since you did do kind of a review into it. So in previous meetings, they had stated that the facility will not be storing hydrogen, but will be storing methane because it's a more stable. Did you find any of that in your findings?
That's what they originally told me,
Okay.
similar, but then they came back and said that the hydrogen throughout the entire system will be calculated, and they said they exceeded the threshold.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Wayne Nebaker for the record, and I've got a couple questions for you. First question is can you tell everybody here exactly what their process is going to be?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't. In fact, last I heard, they were still working on that.
They were still working
They're still,
on that.
correct.
Okay. Is it so nobody knows if they're going to be burning garbage or steaming garbage, but we do know that there's going to be approximately 175,000 tons of garbage on the rail shipped to Battle Mountain every year. Is that correct?
When they did their when they came in here and did their original pitch to us, there was no burning of anything. Everything, that's what why they wanted to utilize. And somebody, if I read something or understood something incorrectly, please correct me. But when they came in and they were talking about needing water, and they were going to use our gray water from the, that's what they utilized when they did that process.
So they were going to steam it and use the Wilson
Yes.
process?
Yes.
Okay, so they were going to steam the garbage, and the steam does have an emission. And to my knowledge, from what I've vetted, nobody can tell you what that emissions is. Nobody can tell you anything about it. They say near zero emissions. In my experience, through working with explosives and stuff throughout the years, near zero emissions means I don't know.
Well, they have to answer. That's why we stopped right where we were
Right.
at and went back, and that's where that vetting process started.
Correct.
And they had to come back with all those answers.
Correct.
So
And in
now they-
Pennsylvania and New York, the local citizens put it down because they couldn't answer their environmental impact studies. And on an environmental impact study, and also you announced that UES has vetted this company that's trying to. You have worked with, your Las Vegas office has worked with this company to
Correct.
be involved, correct?
Correct.
And now you're working on the other side. You're working on both sides, UES is. Is that a conflict of interest?
No, I don't believe it is a conflict of interest. When Bert approached us, we let him know that we did prepare our UES Las Vegas did prepare the environmental statement. I didn't prepare it, but I did review it and then looked at, whether or not they fall under the CAP program.
Okay. Okay, so also if we're steaming garbage, and which is called the Wilson process, if we're steaming garbage and the product is Wilson fiber, and then they burn that, or whatever they do with that to turn it into methane, and then it's shipped off to be compressed into hydrogen, correct? And if we do that, when we steam garbage, there's a residue. So our Lander County garbage dump takes that residue from 175,000 tons. What percentage is an unknown that we get to deposit in our garbage dump? I'm confused about this. I think there needs to be a lot more facts brought to the public before any decision can be made on this. And thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, sir.
Morning.
Morning.
Lamont Edgar for the record. So, Joe, the first meeting that I attended for this, we had talked about the hydrogen, the proximity to where the hydrogen plant was proposed. And I believe the first conversation that was brought up was the Hilltop area, 900 square acres of Hilltop, both sides of Old 8A. I've heard maybe moving to over by the plant north of town to take some of the gray water, which would be amazing. My initial concern with that, the Hilltop area, was taking 100,000 gallons a day out of the water table just for the hydrogen plant, and an additional 40,000 gallons a day for the waste disposal. So 140,000 gallons every day out of that water table, about 51 million gallons per year. So I've heard other things. The plant might be put in somewhere else. What's the latest on the proposed area? I'm sure maybe we were going to get to that, but that is.
And correct me if I'm right, if we're wrong, but it was going to be over by the water treatment because that's where the spur would be, and that water, they wouldn't be using groundwater, they would be using gray water from, if I'm incorrect, somebody please correct me, but that's where, to the best of my knowledge, where
Yeah.
it is to be plans for it.
Yeah, so I mean, we hear some things, and you know that I would just want the latest proposed location where this hydrogen plant was going to be put in.
And Kathy's correct in what she's saying. It's out here on the river. They'll utilize our discharged gray water from the sewer plant.
And also for the same location for waste disposal plant, so they're both going to be on the same property.
As far as my understanding,
Yes.
everything off the rail spur out there, yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Lamont. Are there any other questions?
Jerry Annis again, I apologize for coming back up, but just as a point of clarification, most of you know that I worked at Ormat's micro, I called it a boutique power plant, the smallest one they have in their fleet. Our blast zone for that small plant was, the radius was half a mile. The hole would be a mile across, and that's a small plant, if a catastrophic event should occur. Thanks very much.
Any other questions? Yes?
Real quick, Colt Nelson for the record. Just to be, I think it needs to be said that there was a lot of thought, and still a lot of thought going on about the plant. And formal risk assessments, as the CAP will do, will flush out what are the hazards. And being a risk manager for a lot of years, it may or may not be good enough. Because when you see the risks and the potential, it either goes from a high risk to a medium risk or a low risk based on the controls. And one of the controls is third-party reviews, which we've done. And at this point, when you add it all up, we as a community have to ask ourselves, is the risk worth taking? And if there's even one life at stake, or not assuming blast zones, that's all going to come out in the CAP report. This thing, it either lives or dies with that. And I think that's what's important, is to have that where it's such a low risk because of the controls, we can move forward. And if you don't have that, then, I mean, the obvious thing is we don't do it. People and their lives are way more important than the case of bringing in economic growth. That's just my thoughts on it.
Okay, thank you, Phil. Any other questions or comments on the issue?
I got a quick one. I haven't heard anything. It's not exactly my place, but with gray water being used, why, is there any danger that it won't that it's needed for the recharge? I mean, right now, we process the gray water and it goes into the groundwater eventually and
Well, I
everything's
think it's
filtered.
discharged back into the Humboldt, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
A portion of it is discharged back into the Humboldt, and then a portion of that is in actually holding ponds that evaporate.
so we'd probably just be losing what would evaporate anyway.
There are some water rights that come with that, we get some credits back to our water rights that would have to be addressed, but it wouldn't be coming from our groundwater basin, outside of being already pumped. So currently, we pump anywhere from about 290,000 gallons a day to 320, depending on, summer, winter, and, what's going on, but that's the water that would be used for this rail spur and hopefully any industry that comes in out there.
Okay. Do you have a question?
Wayne Nebaker again for the record, and from what I understand about this Wilson process and steam and garbage is there is a residue left in the garbage, and from what I saw that would go back through our sewer plant, and those residues would be subject to our abilities to dissipate them. Is that correct?
Well, I think
I don't know, I think that's a little further into the process than we are.
Oh, okay.
And I would like to point out that, we aren't here trying to push this thing forward for them. We're on the same, we're actually on the same team on this. We're trying to look into, the depth of
Right.
what this would be for our community, and this is
Right.
our first step in it.
And
Right,
Wayne,
and
I think-
that's-
Wayne, I think what you're, basically these chemicals you're referring to, they're called PFAs or forever chemicals. That's one of my concerns
They're-
right from the
they're
get. on
forever
this whole issue.
chemicals.
That's right. So that was one of my concerns from the
Yeah,
get-go.
that's correct.
And Mr. Ramos is exactly correct. We're on the same side as what you guys are. We're
Right.
not wanting to bring something to Lander County that's not 100% vetted, safe, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're having our questions answered, so your questions are answered, to know that if we do make a decision, that it's an educated decision, that we're bringing something that is safe to Lander County. And I don't think that if it vets out that it's not safe, there's risks or hazards environmentally, I don't think you'll see that in our town. So that's the process we're in. That's what we're doing here today.
That's my whole hope and understanding is that we do what is right for the community and for the children, because we don't need emissions put off that are gonna give children asthma problems or leukemia
We're not looking to
or
do
some
that either. That's why we're doing
strange
this.
deal.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Yes.
John Davis for the record. I apologize, I'm a little late to this party. I haven't done a lot of research, but I remember years ago, I'm gonna call it Chemical Row, North Battle Mountain. Was that not an option for this? First question, I should back up. Which way is the trash coming from, east or west? That
From
they're gonna
my
process?
understanding, John, and correct me anybody if they have the factual data, but my understanding is that it's coming from the west. West coast.
So logistically, North Battle Mountain would save cost because that's the eastbound track.
Okay.
What's the, from my experience with the railroad, return on your investment would be cheaper to pipe that water to North Battle Mountain as an option. Upfront cost, yes. Long-term benefit for the community. Just, has anyone looked at that option?
Good question. So we're referring to out there where Sierra Chemical was, Dyno Nobel.
Dyno Nobel,
Okay.
where all the chemical
So I
factories
think that their concern was accessing enough land to put it on. The county had that, and that was one of the reasons why that was looked at as part of our rail park.
Gotcha.
And the other thing that I want to make sure, everybody knows is that this is, even if this fails, if nothing happens here, if this fails, it's a huge benefit to Lander County, because for us to put our official ask into the railroad and get a rail spur, you have to have a business that's coming to town. Well, no business wants to wait 2.5 years for the rail to approve it.
Correct.
So we're using this as our flagship to get our rail spur into our rail park. So the county has a chance of winning by getting a rail spur, even if this does fail. We're using this as our gateway into a rail spur. So I don't think that it's a bad thing to continue vetting this and getting UP's approval on that spur, and potentially building some track for other industry that may come in off the rail if it's not this.
For sure. Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the public or comments? Okay, so, so it's up to the board here, which direction do we want to move? It sounds to me like what would flow naturally would be that we actually engage in this CAP program, see what their actual findings are, and we get questions answered like what is the blast zone, how much hydrogen are they planning on storing, like are they storing hydrogen, are they storing methane? It's like to get some of the actual facts, and I think from that we'll be able to make a more intelligent decision what direction
I
we move.
agree, I'd like to watch and see the vetting process and see how it rolls out, because that's the telltale sign, and I agree, not one life is worth this project, that's just, there's no amount of money that's worth one life to me, but it's also, it would be, also with this process, let's say this project doesn't go through and something else comes our way, at least we have an idea how the process works, so we're not so, it's not so vague, and you don't know what you don't know, well, at this point, we know, some of the hoops we have to jump through to make sure we get the right company for our rail park. And so if this company, something in the vets and there's something too hot in the community and we don't want it, then at least we have an experience on how to do this, because this rail park in and of itself is new to us. And so it's nice to have something in your belt to know how to move forward on a different project if it comes in. So I think it's, if this doesn't move forward, it's still a win to move forward and see how the whole thing rolls out. And I wouldn't want something that's not safe, that affected anything for that. I mean, I'm out there, sticking up for Sagen, for Christ's sake. Don't want anything to hurt, hurt our environment. And so, but I do want to be educated all the way around and how this process works, as should everyone. And so I'm fine moving forward with the process to see how it works.
Okay. Any other comments from the commission? Okay, so I think.
So commissioners, if we could, is what I would like to do, and I'd like the community to be aware of this, is I would like to bring back an item on this next agenda to secure some sort of agreement with Hughes Energy or Battle Mountain Hydrogen, so they can secure funding in the event this does go forward, but with the understanding that, and I believe, Joe, you'd sent an email, and I didn't find it here, but that there's another program as well outside of CAPS.
Yeah, it's an OSHA program.
Okay,
Yeah, it is.
can you expand on that? Because what I would like to do is maybe we make them check both of them boxes if they're going to come to town.
They're pretty similar. They're very similar.
Okay.
Many of the other states use the OSHA program because they don't have the Nevada cap. The Nevada cap is actually a little bit more rigorous in some respects to the OSHA program. And we had that conversation that it might be a good idea for this commission to require that they go through the OSHA process in the event that they were saying that the hazardous substance they were storing was less than the thresholds to trigger cap. You could say, hey, okay, you're less than the thresholds, so in lieu of cap, we're going to put you through the OSHA program.
Gotcha.
And what we have recently found out, that they will have enough quantities of the materials that has triggered cap.
Okay. So this commission could, regardless of what their quantities come in, could require them to, meet the CAPS program, and that might be something that we get with our district attorney's office and draw something up so they can secure funding to proceed forward if need be, but it would be dependent on time frame and on passing some of these reviews, and then maybe an additional third-party review that we would probably go outside of the company currently that we're working with here with Joe. No offense, but just to have a third-party, completely neutral company for.
So make the contract. The stipulation is that all these things have to be passed, and then if not, contract's void. They're done.
So do we have to have a contract with somebody before the rail spur will agree to put the rail spur in? Or do we just have to have a tentative plan?
We just have to have a tenant that says they're coming to town.
We don't actually have to have a contract with them, all right?
Yeah, I think the thing that we're up against, correct me if I'm wrong, Bert, is that Tyler Bush has stated that there's a limited amount of time to actually put in for some of this green initiative money, and if they don't meet that window, then they're out. That's the thing that makes the project feasible for them. That's kind of the thing they're up against, correct?
That's what they're up against, and so I'm trying to find a way that we aren't forced into make a decision based off of a time frame, and sacrifice any safety in the process of that. We'd rather not make any decision as opposed to sacrifice our safety because they're in a hurry. So if we can appease them by putting something in writing where they can obtain some of the funding, but it's not a guarantee that they're going to get access to our rail park without going through some of these other things is what I'd kind of like to put in place.
Does the commission have any questions or concerns about that?
No, I think that that's fair.
Okay. All right, so do we necessarily need a motion, or can we just give you direction?
As long as we have direction, I wanted the public mainly to know that when you guys see this back on the agenda for a contract, that's, please feel free to read through that contract and come back in here and scrutinize it, because we want to make sure that we're protecting you guys.
Okay. All right, so directed then. Okay? All right, Joseph, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we'll move into item 1.5 for discussion only with Ryan Prowitz, recommendations and/or possible options for community banking in Lander County. Welcome, Ryan. So I know that some of you here in the audience were at the town hall meeting that we had. I think there was a lot of things that came to light that there were some communications about, or some ideas that weren't necessarily correct. And now I'm going to raise my hand to say that when I first heard this, the way I received the data, I had a complete misunderstanding. I was spreading a little bit of misinformation as far as saying it's a county-owned bank, and clearly after the presentation, it's not a county-owned bank. It's basically, Lander County would be assisting in bringing a bank to Lander County as part of our SEDS document. It'd be no different than if we went out, which we have, to credit unions in Elko, asking them to come to Battle Mountain, which we've not had any takers on, but it does require us working with this consultant firm to establish this bank, to get it off the ground and up and operating. That would be Lander County's role. Is it a Lander County bank? County employees? It's none of that. So I'm glad everybody's here today, and I'm glad we have Ryan, who is formerly from the banking industry, that we can ask more questions to shed more light onto this, to find out if it is a fit for Lander County. So.
And I want to say first, thank you very much for your information and doing the research that you did on the people we had there. So I appreciate it, because you were a wealth of knowledge, and I just can't tell you how much I appreciate that. So thank you.
For the record, Ryan Prowitz, and I've got 20 years in banking and insurance brokering. And I've been mulling this over the whole time. And I did make some points that night, and I think a lot of people were there. But true, that the county can't be an owner of a private entity, right? They can't use taxpayers' funds to own stock in a bank, right? You could fund a large deposit in a credit union to help it get its feet. And I've been thinking constantly about this, and I have landed at an idea, and it's not banking, but it is a service that would be similar to it. I think there's a reason the credit unions are saying no to coming to Battle Mountain. There's a reason the community banks have pulled out of Battle Mountain. There is not enough loan demand to make it profitable to operate in Lander County in general. A one-branch bank needs $100 million in loans to operate profitably, right? So larger banks operate typically on a 2 to 3% margin. Your Bank of America's, your JP Morgan, your Cities, those guys are operating on a 2% margin, but they're operating on almost $1 trillion of loan assets, right? So they can cover that. A regional bank, $1 billion plus, with 10 to 12 branches, can operate on a 3% margin. And a lot of what I heard was, well, we want to bring this to town and we want to offer a higher interest rate on deposits and a deal on loans. Well, you just squeeze your margin. A one-branch bank needs a 5 to 5.5% margin to operate profitably. I'm not picking on Charles, but I looked at his bank, and he has $11 million in annual salary and benefits in a one-branch bank.
Wow.
To me, that's 5 times what it should be. I dug deeper because that didn't make sense to me. They operate 4 branches in Florida that weren't really discussed, and their loan production offices, you don't go in and transact deposits, but that's how they're making their money. They're not making it in their one-branch bank in a Chicago suburb. They're writing mortgages in Florida and selling them on the secondary market and getting their it's a premium, if you will. So they're turning and burning mortgages every day and selling them to the third party to Wall Street is what they're doing. And that's how they're making their money. They're not making it in their one branch bank, right? In order to make money in a one branch bank, it has to be a commercial bank. It can't be you're not a mortgage lender and you're not a card lender. A mortgage is the most risky loan there is because it's 30 years long. And banks have to match their assets to their liabilities. So if somebody were to come to me and say, I want a 30-year loan for $500,000 for my house, I have to go find $500,000 to commit it to it for 30 years. So rates today are 7 to 8% on a mortgage, right? What happens in 3 years when they're 5? What are they going to do? They're going to refinance, but I'm stuck with that $500,000 liability for 27 more years. And I took it at 5% because I knew I was going to get 8. Now rates are 5%, I'm breaking even. If they go lower, that bank's now losing money on that deal for the next 27 years. Right? So you have this thing called an ALCO committee. It's the Asset Liability Committee. You must match your durations to your commitments, your borrowings to your commitments. But the problem is there's these laws that say, well, especially for consumers, there's no prepayment penalties allowed on a mortgage. There's no prepayment penalties allowed on a vehicle loan. So when they say, oh, rates have gone down, I'm refinancing over here with another bank, see you later. I go, oh no, what am I going to do with that $500,000? I'm stuck with it for 27 years. And the people the banks are borrowing it from aren't going to let it prepay. Or there's going to be a huge penalty for it. So I just think that's it's not a viable option for a place of this size, for a county of this size. I remember a lady from Kingston that had shown, and she said we would like an ATM in Kingston. I have dealt with ATMs before. I would be terrified to have an ATM in Kingston. They're easy to break. They're easy to run over and chain to the back of your truck and take. They're not a human. So when they make an error, you eat it. There's logs, but how can you prove what happened? It dispensed $2,000 instead of $200, but the record says $200, but I'm $1,800 short today. You eat it. You can't find it. It's just gone. When I was at a credit union, I was a controller of a $3 billion credit union in Phoenix, and we had 22 ATMs, and I bet we lost $3,000 to $5,000 a month on them, and it's just gone. And it's just an error, right? And you can't find it. And by the time you try, it's not worth it. I'm not going to take 3 of my accounting people and say, go audit that ATM and see what happened and watch the video and see who got it. And then let's try to identify who it was, right? It's just not worth the time. So I have landed at an idea, and I don't know how it would be received, but I remember growing up here thinking, we are one of the largest gold producers in the world. Why can't we have it here? Why isn't there an exchange here in town with a vault where I can go down and say, I want an ounce of gold and I want you to put it in my box. I want 10 ounces of silver, why don't you put it in my box? I think that would be a service this county could offer to the people here. Keep some of that in town. I mean, I remember asking my dad one time when I was little, where does it go? And he's like, oh, Loomis comes, picks it up, and it's gone. Well, where? Well, I don't know. Well, why do we make it all and it all goes away? There's an alliteratory story, or however you want to call it. In 1920, you could buy a full tailored suit for a $20 coin, an ounce of gold. You can still go get a full tailored suit today for an ounce of gold. But it was $20 then, it's $2,200 now. So if the county's looking to do something with a bunch of funds, we know they're going to keep printing money. We know the dollar's going to keep diminishing in value. We know we have large petro countries now that are pulling out of the dollar exchange because we've sanctioned them so hard. They're saying, you've made it too expensive for us to do business with you anymore. We're going to do our own exchanges and skirt the dollar. That's going to hurt the dollar and diminish the value of the dollar more. If you want to hedge your bets, put a big vault in a basement between this building and that one. County can fund it, build it. Put some of your funds in that to hedge the market, hedge inflation and the devaluation of the dollar. because it's not going to devalue silver, gold, copper. It's not going to devalue your hard metals. And offer the people the opportunity to come in and buy it, get it delivered if they want to take it home to them, or put it in a vault there, in the vault, earmarked for them. And the way the county would make the money on it is the spot fee. Because anytime you buy gold or silver, you have to pay it's like an exchange fee, a spot fee on the gold or silver.
So you're talking about a vaulted depository, so basically you have stated that government can't own a bank or be involved with the bank. So it's different for a vaulted depository?
Sure, because the county, if you wanted to do something with your funds to hedge it against the dollar, right? There's $200 or $200 million right now, I hear. Take a quarter of it and put it in that vault in gold and silver. Right? When the market dives, you're not getting hit. When the dollar dives, you've actually increased your value in holdings of dollars. But you've done it with hard metals. I think one of your guys' tenets I heard was think like an owner, or be like an owner, behave like an owner, something to that effect. I think about myself and what I do, and I've worked for banks for 20 years. I don't put it back into the banks. I don't put it into the market. I put it into things that are tangible. I put it into gold, I put it into silver, and I put it into land. Because those are must-haves, right? Those are haves. I don't have to have Google. I don't have to have a phone. I have to have air, water, shelter, right? And we know gold and silver have always held through the test of time. Those are tangibles. Those are needs, not wants. And so if I was going to look into doing something here, that's what I would do, is I would do a gold and silver exchange, a metal exchange. The county could operate it. Then the way you staff, or the way you cover your costs, is from the spot fees, when people come in and exchange, buy and sell.
I think one of the things that I view it as a benefit to this process thus far is that we've looked at where some of our money is, and my own conclusion is that it's at risk. Taxpayers' money is at risk, because if this particular bank went down, you have so much in.
You're not gaining,
right? Outside your $250,000 FD, your insurance,
yeah, right?
You're done, and it's so it's really opened my eyes up to that. Is there a way to actually protect that, right? Because we are in financial uncertain times with the American dollar. So I don't know what you said.
I think
Anybody have
that
any
is a hell of
questions?
an idea, and I don't have a question. I'm going to rant on that. During COVID, right when that all of that started to happen, my daughter was out on the Reagan, and the captain came over and said, whoever that you can get a hold of, you better call your loved ones and tell them to start getting some money out of the bank and do it now. And so she had gotten a hold of us, and I mean, we were right down there and I was able to, and I'm not exaggerating, I went down and said, well, I'm just gonna buy a car, I wanna take my money out. So they gave me my money. Well, my husband went out after me. I said, do not tell them that this is because of COVID.
Right.
And I'm not lying, I swear on my daughter's life. He goes down to get his money, they wouldn't give him his money. They said, you can't have your money for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And he went, what? And so I was always played pinochle with Marion Filippini, and she said, Kathy, that's what they did during the collapse, is they did that same exact thing. The farmer started to go in to get the money, and then the doors were locked. And the $250, good luck trying to get blood out of a turnip, because if the government doesn't have $250, you're not $250,000, you're not getting that back either.
That's right.
And they got nothing back. So the other thing I found difficult too was I tried to buy gold and silver during COVID, because Unger told me to do it long before that, and like telling you 15, 20 years ago, and I didn't listen to him. But stupidly during COVID, couldn't get it, because everybody else had that same idea. And you're absolutely right, and it just makes me giggle that you said that, because that is a phenomenal idea. Because when and everybody that knows, when I think it was Venezuela, and correct me if I was wrong, they just went through the streets and threw their money,
yeah,
because it was worth nothing, and that's what we're going to eventually be at, truly. And so I think that is a phenomenal idea, and I'm just what makes me giggle, because I just think that if you're going to invest in something, invest what you already have,
yeah,
within your reach of your fingers. And that's a wonderful idea, and thank you.
I know in my heart, if it all breaks loose and it all crumbles, I know I still have currency, because I have gold and silver in my gun vault. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I know it. I know I can still exchange. I know if I need hens, I can go get some. If I need a cow, I can go trade a bar or something. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It'll work itself out again, the whole barter system. If that were to happen, we would be back to the barter system. Well, I mean, dollars are going to be butt wipe, is what they'll be. I mean, they'll be fire starter. They won't be anything. They'll be a joke. I mean, I remember when Venezuela said, hey, sorry, everybody, we got to knock a bunch of zeros off of your dollars because we got to try to get our money back under control. I mean, it was Venezuela. You're spot
Yeah, it
on.
just was I could not believe that. And they just showed it, that they're all of their, everything that those people had worked so very hard for just laid in the street. And
Yeah.
they were all on their hands and knees, and it was very, very sad.
Yeah. And if you guys were to do this and explore it or whatever, a couple things to think about. I would keep it right here. I wouldn't put it in the old Bank of America building.
No.
And I'll tell you why. Locations like that are close to a freeway on-ramp are usually robbed on Friday afternoon. I had been at a bank that was very close to a freeway on-ramp, and I had been robbed on a Friday afternoon before. That's when it happens. So if you were to use that building out there, you need somebody parked there every day about 3 to 5 o'clock, right where they're at this morning, speed trapping out there by the Comfort Inn now. Not speed trapping. I see them every morning.
It is what it is. It is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. It keeps the speeds down, and I'm fine with that. I like seeing deputies. That makes me feel good. But if I were to do that, I would put it on county property, and I would put it right here, and I would put the vault underground, and I would put seismic detectors all the way around it through the cement. Not for earthquakes, for somebody digging a hole and drilling in.
All right, thank you. Questions from the commission? No questions? I'll open it up to questions in the public. Are there questions?
So I would like to curtail on what you started with, just so the public knows how we got here, right? Because the county sit around and come up with these wonderful ideas for anybody who wasn't at the town hall. We actually have better things to do, but, and I want to thank our county staff that did do the hustling, Colt and the team, because a lot of these documents that we get as government, it's a lot easier to not take the scrutiny of public and say, we'll get to it and leave that on the back burner. But the rumors around here especially are always better than reality. And with this one, this idea came from the SEDS document, which is the Community Economic Development. It's an idea to bring banking to Lander County. We said, hey, how do we explore these options to make it better? Maybe get lower interest loans. These are us thinking, not having a banking background. How can we get the people of Lander County something back when we're one of the richest counties in the nation? And this was one of the ideas. So we started diving through this SEDS document. The rail park's one of the things we're hitting it as well. You go through this SEDS document, you're seeing that there's actually, this thing's been, a lot of people probably never heard of it because it's been sitting around for 20 years and there hasn't been a lot of action. But we're checking boxes. So if the commission doesn't want to do this, we'll take some of the beating of the public, but we're going to try to make it better for everybody. And if it ends up being a big flop, it's a big flop, but an attempt. So I just wanted to kind of bring that back off of what Brian said, because we didn't just come up with this idea out of the blue. It was to bring banking to town. We brought the best bankers in. We were thinking we could leverage some of the county's funds to benefit locals. Clearly that is not how banking works, and we're getting a serious education on it. So I just wanted to make the public aware of that.
Would you explain to them that for people who don't know what the SEDS document is?
Yeah, so it's county economic development. So it's anything we can bring to town that will bolster the economy. And that is, the event center that was just approved at budget is something that will bolster economy. Things that we can bring to town that if the mines ever go out, this community can continue to thrive, and hopefully one day our kids can live across the street from us because we were responsible today when we were well off. So that's kind of what that SEDS document is based on, is bringing something to town that makes us more sustainable.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to open it up to questions and comments from the public. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Aaron Martinez for the record. I just had a question to kind of spin off of what you were talking about, and I'll just kind of throw a hypothesis out there and you kind of tell me if you think it's feasible. So the original kind of formation of this idea started from, as Mr. Ramos identified, as benefiting the Lander County residents. And the original idea was, is there a way to make the Lander County residents a non-voting shareholder and stakeholder in a bank as a co-op? And we looked at it as an agricultural co-op originally. And
we would look at like Alaska laws where if you're a resident and you prove yourself like Alaska requires, then you would automatically by default be a shareholder in the bank, whether you're a depositor or not. And then that shareholder, being a non-voting shareholder, would be reaping the profit yield from any margins made from the bank. And then the second kind of twist on that, and it's kind of in line with what you were talking about, the gold depository, is we were trying to get away from FDIC insurance, and I know this is kind of not really a great topic, but we were originally looking at targeting some of the open cash assets in the country, and if maybe like the marijuana cash could be invited to that bank to be a depositor, and then that bank could reap the yields from that deposit. And so we started trying to come up with formulation ways to get away from FDIC insurance, and the concept was, well, why couldn't we back our own money with our own money and create a gold depository just like you're talking about, but utilizing that as that FDIC insurance component and matching every depositor's dollar for dollar, not a $250,000 asset. So do you think any of that is feasible?
I know this is feasible. I know you can do what he's stating. You can forego FDIC insurance and say, we're not going to do it. We're going to put faith in ourselves, and we know that we're strong enough to manage this profitably, and you can totally do that. Read the S&L crisis history of the 1980s by the FDIC. The S&L, Savings and Loans Association crisis of the 80s. Essentially, that's kind of how they operated, right? They had insurance, but they operated under the same auspice. They were car lenders, home lenders, HELOCs, home improvement loans, and ag lenders to the farmers. And I hear, return. The return has to be you have to lend the money. I don't think that. And then, if you're going to make everybody a member and share the profits equitably across the boards, I don't think there's a demand for the loans. I'm not worried about the capital or the deposits in this town or this county. I know we could get $10 million to start a bank. If I went and door knocked people and said, I'm going to do this, I think it would happen. I'm not worried about getting $100 million in deposits. I'm worried about lending that $100 million out because I don't think there's the demand here to meet it. And you have to get it. And there's rules that say, now, if we didn't take FDIC insurance, we could lend outside the county. But when you lend outside your footprint, you get into some other things. Well, do I know the area I'm lending to? Do I know? There's 5 C's to credit, to lending, and the last one's character, right? All right, I know you, your credit score's a 550, but you've always paid me. You've always paid me, and you've always made good on your deal. I'm going to lend to you. You can do that without the FDIC getting up your nose if you forego the insurance because they don't audit you, right? There's still handshake loans that happen, and then we just draw the paperwork up. Right? It's because I've dealt with you for 20 years, and I've seen your ups and downs, and you always make good on it. And I know you've got $5 million sitting in your vault at home too. And if push comes to shove, I know you'll give it to me if I need it, right? So there is good faith lending out there. But my concern, I would be all for this, but I don't think there is the loan demand in this area that will make it profitable. And we're very transient as well, right? My husband and I looked here for 18 months to try to find something, and we ended up buying a trailer park in Montana and are now migrating that way. We're 60% moved, and we're going to sell our place here. We tried finding things around here to make it go, but I look at Main Street and it's half vacant. The commercial properties are half vacant. They're tied up too, right? That's convenient for some that own most of them, right? And I'm not throwing rocks, but I want my hands on that. We looked at the bowling alley. Well, the lanes are 3 feet short, so I can't hold legal leagues to get people from. So if I was to buy that building, I've got to knock out the whole back end, move it back 3 inches, and start over if I want to pull weekend tournaments from Elko, Winnemucca, Ely, or Eureka and stuff, So there's just, we looked at a lot of things here we wanted to try to do, and found an opportunity up there and the price was right, the land was right, it was 2.5 acres of commercial property on the river and we got all the trailers in the house. And we got it for $250,000. And so that opportunity didn't present itself here and we looked hard and we didn't want to go, but that's gonna be our new venture because I don't want to bank anymore, quite honestly. I don't. It's a lot of work. It's a ton of work. There's a ton of compliance and tons of regulations. If you forego the insurance, you escape most of it, right? But then you have to know who your operator is, right? Somebody's going to be able to sign the checkbook for that whole place, right? And they could be solid for 10 years and go off the rails and wire it to Costa Rica and you wouldn't even know it's gone until somebody's like, why didn't they show up for work? You know, there's a lot to think about with a bank or any financial institution that has access to the SWIFT network, which is where you wire funds, and the ACH network. There's a million ways to get around stuff like that, and you have to have controls. Everything's got to be under dual control at all times. If you do a depository, if you were to consider that, everything must be done under dual control at all times. One person has a key to the vault, one person has a combo, and you've got cameras outside and inside at all times on every angle, right? There has to be a full logging of every action taken. My only concern is there's not going to be the loan demand here, and I don't believe there is.
Yeah.
Or I would be all for this.
So I would like to make one real quick statement for the public. Everybody knows that me and my brother are in the marijuana business. We would never come to the banking institution here to bank. We currently have a banking institution that we use. This is Martinez's idea, not a county idea.
That's right.
And I want to make that very clear to the public. This has never been, hey, let's create this bank for us to bring our money. My brother happens to be sitting in the room with us. He can very much clarify that. But that was an idea that Mr. Martinez had said, why don't we do this? And I said, I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah.
So for him to say that in the public, I want to make sure that that's clarified.
That's exactly right. This is simply just an idea that we've been throwing around. That's for the agricultural co-op. And really the end goal was to always help the Lander County resident. I understand your profitability concerns, and you're absolutely right. The end goal was like, could a Lander County resident get a loan just a little bit cheaper than he could on the open market? And then maybe this bank did yield some profitability, and then that Lander County resident reaped $150 a month or something. We were just hoping that if there was a way to build up that person in the local economy, that they would just be doing that much better. And so we were looking at those open opportunities, and that's where that FDIC component had come in. And so I think that to kind of close out, the gold depository thing that you're talking about was exactly what we were looking at also, but with a twist of one teller being able to work with the president of the bank to potentially offer local residents loans just a little bit better than the open market. And what we found in our research was that that type of approach yielded a better profitability than kind of what our current investments are now. So anyway, thank you so much for your time and humor in the idea.
Yeah.
Thank you for your comment there, Aaron.
And I know banks that have done this, and I know banks that have foregone the FDIC insurance because they want to be a marijuana bank, right? And they do it, and they make it work. But I know, and when I say I know banks that do it, I'm talking in a Phoenix Metro or a Seattle Metro. So they've got, 100 depositories that are contributing to their base, if you will, and they're going out and lending that money as well. But people operate with them with the understanding there's no coverage from the FDIC. There's no, and they do it. I did this when I was in Washington and they first legalized it in Washington. We had a client that sold his trucking company and opened 3 dispensaries, and for the first couple years, and we had auditors in every 18 months, like clockwork. The state, the FDIC, the state, the FDIC, and they saw that account, and we told them what it was. Yes, we're banking. He used to own the trucking company. We banked him forever. He sold it. He opened these. We said, we'll gamble and we'll do it. They didn't touch his account until he started making a whole bunch of money. And about 3 years after he had built his balances huge, they came in and the Department of Justice showed up and they said, lock his account, cut us a check, we're headed to his property. And they took it all. The guy sold a very lucrative, profitable trucking company and did this, and he lost it all because they just seized it, because it was in an FDIC insured bank. But if you forego the insurance, you can do it. It also, it would make you more profitable because you don't need as much staff for compliance and oversight, right? But when you have less compliance and less oversight, what did I hear earlier? You have more risk.
Well, and I think that's the thing is, and it's, a town of our size, I mean, if we were going to do something as Mr. Martinez suggested, and you're using taxpayers' funds, it's just, it's like gambling with
It is
taxpayers'
gambling.
funds. And it's like, I mean, it's like, and you said it exactly, when you're talking about loans that really have substance to be able to sustain, it's real estate loans, right?
Yes.
And it's like, there's nothing that says that they can't refi, you're stuck holding that note, and it's like, not to mention, we're a boom bust cycle, right? It's like, what is it when you're in the downside? What does that mean for your bank and taxpayers' dollars? I just, the more I look at it, it's like, man, I don't think that's, at least the idea that I had. I want to be able to secure what we have, right, in the midst of like financial crisis that we're having in this country. So, me personally, just on the outside, as just a nutshell understanding of it, I like the vault idea because you are displacing some of that cash with real tangible assets, right? Deflationary assets. How that looks completed, I don't know, but I think it's worth further exploration. I don't know, is there any other public comment or questions on it, or
I think that's a wonderful idea.
does the commission have any other questions or comments?
Other than I think it's the gold and silver, I think that's a wonderful idea myself, and so I don't have a problem, looking more into that, so.
So it was agendized. Ryan, thank you very much for
Sure.
coming. It was.
Thanks for having me.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
so I think we probably, would it be the pleasure of the board to maybe move forward to look at maybe a depository type of a idea in Lander County and maybe agendize that for
Yeah,
discussion?
I don't have a
or-
problem doing
Well, my question is, Bill, where do we stand legally on that?
Well, that's almost impossible to say because the devil's in the details. I mean, there's some things you can do and other things you can't. And I'm not sure exactly what Ryan has in mind.
Well, I would think a gold and silver exchange. Not that you're marketing online to ship to people in Florida, right? A local exchange. And the county could also have a big section of that vault where you take some of your funds and you just say, here's our balance, and in ounces of each.
Our own Fort Knox.
Yes, a mini Fort Knox.
And you've got to.
And I don't know what it takes
Some
to.
kind of profit coming. I mean, just
It would
storing
be
it
the
is
only.
one thing.
It would just be from the swaps, the spot chain, the spot fees. If people, but then again, are there enough people that are going to be coming in and buying and selling it?
That was my next
I
question.
don't know.
Yeah, the legality of that could be,
I think what you
Sketchy.
could start off with a decent amount and see what your spot exchange, and if it, because I honestly think that people are to the point to where we're not the only ones afraid. We have a lot of people who are afraid of the economy, and that spot exchange, if you could grow that could be something that if you want to give back to Lander County citizens, that's something you can give back to Lander County citizens. And I think that if you see where you could, just have ideas of a 1 year, 5 year, 10 year, or 5 year, 10 year, 15 year plan down and see and go start there, but make sure that it's planned and you see how, because like I said, I think more people would be interested in doing that. I'm surprised, truly am surprised at how many people in this community buy gold and silver that I had no idea. I truly am.
There's a lot.
You ask and they're like, oh, well, you bought it. And I'm like, holy cow.
But we have to get it online and either shipped to us. I take it. I don't leave it sitting somewhere in a vault because I can't see that and I don't know it's there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They have those huge warehouses for it and whatnot. If I'm buying from one of those exchanges, it's getting delivered, right? It better be at my doorstep.
Don't you think that could be a possible problem with us and our depository? People's willing, just like to let it go, to let somebody else vault it. Like, no, I'll just keep it in my own little.
Well, there's trust there, right? And you'll have an audit and once a quarter or something, you say, here's our balance and here's local holdings and here's county holdings.
So let me ask you this. So basically, when I stated that we have a surplus of money at a bank, it's at risk.
Sure.
Anything outside of the 250. So my concern is protecting what we have. That's like my primary concern, because it's a lot of money to lose. Besides the depository, is there anything in your expertise, right, in your knowledge of the industry that we could do with taxpayers' funds to help safeguard or protect that money?
You could open a $245,000 CD in every bank in the US, because then you get the coverage in every single one of them, and there's brokers that will do that. There's a website called QuickRate, QWIKRATE.com. And all the buying banks all the banks that are members of QuickRate, which it's huge, it's very vast. You go in there every day and there's an offer for 6 months, 12 months, 2.5, 3, 5 years deals and CD rates. And you say, okay, I'm buying a CD there, wire it. I'm buying a CD there, wire it. I'm buying a CD there, wire it. But then just remember, they constantly roll. You got to track them.
Right.
Then you're covered, but it takes work.
So let me ask you this, so, you're putting your faith into FDIC, is there any chance that FDIC could just say, sorry guys, we don't have it, we are broke?
Well, I mean, there's always that chance, right? It hasn't happened, but when it does, the dollar's gone. I mean, when that happens, banking as we know it is over. I believe. And when they can't cover that anymore, the full faith is gone, right? We're supposed to, I mean, you look at the dollar and it's like backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government. Well, if they can't write the check anymore, what's that statement mean? Faith is gone, right? And when a dollar is fiat, right? It only has value because we assign value to it, right? It's paper that we assign a value to and we believe in. But when you stop believing in it and the masses stop believing in it and the masses stop using it, you're going to see bartering start again.
Wait a minute. Quick thing. This is basic economics, but all you gotta do is think of history. You have the Confederate States of America went down. What happened to their money? Wasn't worth anything. Why? Because it's not backed up by taxes.
Right.
Okay?
Are we off
Germany
agenda?
went down. Was their money worthless? No, because the Allies decided they're gonna keep the mark alive, and they got through it. For the first couple of months after the surrender, they were in trouble because they didn't know what the Allies were going to do. And the Deutschmark, at that point it was the Reichsmark, wasn't worth anything for most people, and they were doing barter. So that's your difference. It's whether the tax dollars are there. Fast forward to the FDIC, we print money. So unless the United States government itself goes down, you're fine other than inflation. Inflation is where you're gonna have your problem.
And I think
Am I wrong?
I think that's what we're talking about, is safeguarding that 200 million and keeping it at 200 million in buying power.
All right, that I agree with, but in terms of losing it overnight, that's not likely.
No, it's not likely, but it can happen. And the more they print, the less it's worth.
Or when you go to get your money from the bank and they tell you you can't have it.
Right.
We have a comment or a question.
That's my word about
John Davis for the record. Want to thank Ryan for his insightfulness. But my question is the money, from the county standpoint, is the money more at risk being lost to a financial institution or a clawback from the state of Nevada?
Or what?
A clawback.
The state come in and see.
The state coming in and clawing it back. What's at risk? What's the higher risk?
I would say there's a higher risk of, and it's sorry to jump in, but, so there is a history of, Washoe County is an example of where they seen a county with excess funds, and they came in and swept a portion of that for the state's deficit. And I would say there's a higher risk of that for us than there is of probably the global market being the concern. Well, I mean, who knows with the global market right now?
So,
But that has been taken.
In the short side, even if you put it into gold, they can still claw it back. Or Or is that a transaction on your budget that protects that money from the state of Nevada as a clawback?
What do you think, Ron?
We would have to look into that, but this is part of the reason we earmark so much money to projects. Because if it's earmarked for spending, then they have a much harder time coming in and taking it from us. But I honestly couldn't answer you if that's considered an investment or if that's considered something they can come and take.
Well, let me ask this, because I had asked that similar question, John, and I thought I was enlightened because I had it all wrong, that the state could come in and sweep your funds. Only the new money that we're expecting from net proceeds they could take, but what we have bankrolled, they can't take. So am I wrong in that understanding?
Yes, so the history shows, and like I said, Washoe County is the example, that they'd came in and taken funds from them in the past because they didn't have enough of it earmarked and they had exceeded, and the state's budget was so far down. And I don't know what the tipping point is for that allows them to come in and take funds. But that's the one example of where it's happened, where the states came in and take some of their excess funds.
So let me ask you this, so when we budget, we earmark these funds, they're semi-protected now. We started the rainy day fund a few years ago, and we have what now, 35 million in it, something like that. Could we take that money and convert it to gold and silver?
No, because so once it's put in a rainy day fund, there's certain thresholds that have to be hit now to get that money back. We put it in there to protect it for the rainy day.
But so I don't forget this, during COVID, when they were trying to take our resource money, they were wanting to hit all of the counties, because I was on the meetings with the legislatures where they were, Sisolak at that time was actually trying to figure out whose money and what county had money that they could take when the state couldn't make their budget, whose money they could get. And that's exactly, he was trying to figure out the legal way of doing that. So it's not like they don't try to figure it out, they just didn't get the voting power at that time from the legislature to be able to do it.
I can tell you what it looks like when you're the bank, and I haven't had it happen with the county funds, but I've had it happen with people's personal funds. When the state sends an order, it kind of comes like this. You will send us these funds to this location by this date, or we will revoke your state banking charter license.
Yep.
And you just do it. So it's that simple. As soon as they get the order, it lands, it goes. And I mean, a good banker would call you and say, hey, guess what? The state just sent an order and we got to send them $50 million bucks, head up. And we're going to do it, or we lose our charter for the state.
Execution and seizure of funds.
Yeah.
And they don't have to have a reason.
So follow-up question. So out of your round number $200 million, how much of it is earmarked? Not half of it.
No.
I couldn't. Yeah, and some of it. So to that, that's a big question to unpack, because there's some of it that are in, right, like long-term holding, short-term holding.
Okay. What's the market value of those holdings?
Yeah,
you need to know what the market value versus the book value of your security portfolio is, and you should get. I know there's two brokers we work with. You should get a monthly. Juicy should get a monthly report from both of those brokers that say, here's your total holdings, and it's going to be. Right, every QSIP is in there, every CD, whatever they brokered for you is listed in there. And there's going to be a book value, which is what you paid for it less the principal payments that have been made back to you. But there's also going to be a market value, and that's what the value of that portfolio truly is today. And if any of that stuff was bought when rates were at 0 to 0.25, which means prime was 3 to 3 1/4, I can tell you that money right now is 50 to 75 cents on the dollar. So you need to hold it to maturity or you won't recover it all. Unless rates come back down to that area, and then you're even again. But there will be a discount in there for anything that was bought before any time the rates are as high as they are now. All those securities in that portfolio will be discounted.
And I just have one other comment while I'm up here. Ryan made a comment about the community being transient, which he's 100% right. And it's a double-edged sword. A lot of our proceeds have come from NGM and the area mines. That's great. That's why we have all this money. But until you get NGM on board to help support this community, we will always be transient. As long as they're busing employees from Winnemucca to Cortez every day, right through our town, we're going to be transient. So NGM's a double-edged sword for our community. Yes, they give us a lot of money, but what do they give back? They're not helping the community grow and stay sustainable. I mean, everybody's leaving. I mean, our population has not grown in how many years? I mean, we come and go. And until you can get the major employer, NGM, to set some roots in Lander County, in our community, it's always gonna be transient. Everybody's gonna go to Elko. Everybody's gonna go to Winnemucca. We're used to it. It's what we do.
And with that being said, just like we've had, on that same with the SEDS report, a lot of our housing is aging out of the top three for the 3% for the taxes. So a lot of it, and even the smaller amounts we get for the trailer park and stuff, that's going to age out. Because when they first came in 2 years ago and told me that, so I went to see how old these trailer parks were, and they've been there almost long, they're gonna be long there, that we really, and we're not building any new homes, because like you said, they're going to Elko and Winnemucca, and they're building homes there like fire, but they're not, the contractors aren't coming here. So we're not getting any more homes to get property taxes off to run your facilities. And so it's all ran, off what the pittance we get.
Echo Bay. Did Echo Bay put those places in? Or so how did we make that happen? Let's make that happen again. How did we strong arm into Echo Bay into putting in the trailers here and then the trailer south on the other park? That was the place to be. Those were super nice. I remember when I was here, those were all new. Oh, you work for Echo Bay, you live over here. Nice. You got a nice new double.
But do it in a real property sense so that you can collect the taxes on it.
Yes, they have to be real property, because if they're not, they do.
So with that said, you want to get back to the community, right? I mean, you're trying to figure out how to help the community. Can the commission budget 1 quarter, 2 quarters worth of property taxes for residents in Lander County? Can you budget that money?
We've already looked at things.
So it's gonna be a future agenda item. I don't wanna get too far off topic, but, if you reduce taxes, then somebody else picks them up, which is a school or the hospital, other districts in the community that pick them up. So you really never can reduce taxes, because then somebody else snags them because they need them, and then but we are kicking around some pretty good ideas that are gonna hopefully give back to every resident, that will be like a tax reduction, like similar to what you're speaking of, but in a little different light.
Okay. Cool, thanks guys.
Thanks, John. Question?
Wayne Nebaker again for the record. In 1999, we had the same population that we have today. And in 1999, we had 3 commissioners and no county manager. Okay, today we have 5 commissioners and a county manager and an assistant county manager. So we've grown government, but the population of Lander County hasn't grown. I was fortunate to come in here the other day and witness the approval of an event center in Battle Mountain. Since I first came to town in 1980, that's the biggest thing that I've seen these commissioners do to enhance this community. If we have an event center, we have the ability to grow. We're going to have more motel rooms come into town because there's going to be a need. Nobody's bringing a business to town without a need. Okay, now we're going to have a need. And the same thing with banking. With banking, we just simply don't have the population base to support it. That's just the cold hard facts. When in 1960, Elko County had 12,500 people when they initiated the Elko Federal Credit Union. And today, the population of Elko County is probably 50,000. The population of Battle Mountain is still 70% below what Elko's was in 1960. And with the value of the dollar, the value of inflation and everything, I mean, it's just not feasible. It's just not sensible. But also with the price of gold, we look at today, the price of gold today is at an all-time high. How long can we expect that price of gold to be at an all-time high? Do we want to go in and invest all of our money in the price of gold at an all-time high? I mean, we really don't have too many places to go from the all-time high. So why don't we make projects? Why don't we invest our money and earmark our money for projects? I mean, the event center was a start. That's how we do it. That's how we build this community, is have reasons for people to come. And that's my 2 cents worth.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. So Eric, sorry, Brian,
It's all right, Brian.
love your dad. Thank you very much for coming
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
and helping us maybe gather a clearer picture of what we can or can't
Sure.
do, and I do appreciate it.
And you know how to get a hold of me,
Yeah,
so.
whatever direction they go, I'll be bugging you.
All right,
I
either way,
appreciate it.
I'm happy to help.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so I think we'll go ahead and take a 15-minute break at this point.
Muted. This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and call the meeting back to order. We'll continue with item 2. We're going to recess the Board of Lander County Commissioners and convene the meeting of the Lander County Liquor Board composed of the Lander County Board of Commissioners and Sheriff Ron Unger.
I think you skipped an item.
1.6.
Oh, sorry, I am so sorry. My nose clouded, I'm sorry, Ron. So we're going to go back to 1.6 for discussion of possible action to approve, disapprove designating an area at each building which is open to the public and occupied by the county for the use of any person to gather signatures on a petition at any time that that building is open to the public as required by NRS 293.127565. So basically, this is something to come into compliance with NRS.
Yes.
Molly, would you like to speak on it?
Molly Gonzalez for the record. I received a letter from the state just needing us to submit our list of any county-owned buildings where we would allow people to get signatures for petitions. So I
Okay.
just came up with a list of some here and some in Austin. If you have any changes or anything you guys want to add, take off, change, we can do that.
Okay.
This is for, well, it basically keeps talking about petitions. It's petitions for ballot proposals. So in other words, government petitions, not petitions to, I don't know, resolve to do whatever. That is, any crazy petition out there is not necessarily going to be covered by this. You do, though, have to permit, if this is for anything, it's going to be a ballot proposal.
So ballot proposal, it's okay to gather and get petitions, but give us an example of like where it wouldn't be okay. Like a recall petition.
Now, you could do the recall petition
Okay.
too. I'm thinking of petitions that don't have to do with government.
What if
A
people
petition
wanted,
to have the Catholic Church recognize abortion or something goofy.
okay. And that's laid out clearly in the NRS?
And by the way, I'm not opining on abortion, it's just that knowing their position, that's not something that they would be open to, and it doesn't have anything to do with us as government. That's why I'm using it as a ridiculous example.
All right. Well, thank you for that clarification. Commissioners, you see the facilities they're proposing, right? Anybody
Yes.
have any questions or concerns about that? Want to delete any, add another? Okay, so then I'll hear a motion.
Motion to approve, designate the list of designated areas at each building which is open to the public and occupied by county for the use of any person to gather signatures on a petition at any time that the building, as long as the building is open as the public and is required and met by NRS 293.127565.
Okay, we have a motion from Mike. Is there a second? And a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we'll move to item 2. We're going to recess the Board of Lander County Commissioners and convene the meeting of the Lander County Liquor Board composed of the Lander County Board of Commissioners and Sheriff Ron Unger. 2.1, discussion and possible action to approve, disapprove the on/off sale liquor license for, I apologize if I get the name wrong, Brij Bushan and Maru Medina with BVMD Investments LLC DBA Overtime Bar, Smoke and Grill located at 870 South Broad Street, Battle Mountain, Nevada, 89820.
Good morning, Sheriff Ron Unger for the record. We do have the applications. We have done all of our background research on it. It is an on and off sale, and they are good to go as far as the background on them.
Okay, so with the previous owners, did we have an on-off sale with them?
Yes, sir, I believe we
They
did.
did, okay, so it's just transferring it to the new owners.
Well, this is-
Congratulations on your purchase too, guys.
It's not a transfer, it's actually, because they do have the Deli Quick Mark, this is another one. So they're going through the new application.
So basically, they're able to buy alcohol there and then take it off the premises?
Yes, sir, it's
Is
it's
that
on
how it
and
was
off.
with the establishment before?
Yes,
They
sir,
were
it
able to
was.
do the same thing? Okay. Commission have any questions or comments?
So they're running two separate
Businesses.
liquor licenses?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the on-off sale liquor license with Rich Boucham and Midha with BVMD Investments LLC, DBA Overtime Bar, Smoke and Grill located at 870 South Broadway Street, Battle Mountain, Nevada 89820.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, congratulations, guys. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
So we'll adjourn the meeting of the Lander County Liquor Board and reconvene the Lander County Board of Commissioners. We'll move into 3 correspondence, reports, future agenda items.
So I have the potential contract with Battle Mountain Hydrogen to come back before you guys. Would you guys like anything back for the banking discussion? Not at this
Yeah,
time.
I mean, probably just get with your staff and maybe we get an idea of what a depository looks like, and then, like, it doesn't necessarily have to be next meeting, but yeah, a future upcoming meeting for sure.
Okay, I'll harass Ryan and Colt disappeared. We'll bring something back.
Okay. Any other agenda items, guys, or? Okay. All right, then we'll move into public comment on agenda items only. Is there any public comment? Yes?
Pam Harrington for the record, Natural Resource Officer for Lander. And I wanted to just invite you commissioners on a little tour if you're game. Next April 5th, Friday, 4:30 in the morning, we would leave from this building to head down to Austin to watch some sage grouse dancing on their lek. So we have to leave very early because you have to be out at the lek before the sun comes up. Jeremy Lutz would take us out there, and now he's found a location that would be suitable. The birds are active right now. So
What's the date?
April 5th, that's Friday, next Friday. If I got that right, I think I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
At 4:30, you said?
Yeah, 4:30 in the morning, we'll saddle up from here, and obviously, commissioners, we won't have 3 in a vehicle. We're gonna make sure we're do the right thing for the open meeting law, but we're just gonna go look at birds, so it should be a good time. And
So you
just,
should be in Austin about 5:45?
I guess so, yeah, Jeremy thought that would be about right. I don't know where the lek is, he does. It's out
I'm sure
there
it's out in
somewhere.
Grass Valley, but.
Yeah, well, we'll find you out in Austin if you, and, I would like to know if anyone is interested in doing this so that I could plan.
Well, my husband, my husband owns.
Okay, we'll
not
plan on,
immediate
for sure,
vehicle.
the 2 of you, so I'll make sure I'm here for 4:30.
Check
And
my
anyone?
schedule.
Okay, yeah, you might be game too. Excellent, yeah, it's been fun. I've done that with the Elko County groups before, so I'll see if I can get a couple of spotting scopes too, so we can see them
I
closer.
can meet you at the courthouse.
Okay, courthouse it is. All right.
Thank
Well,
you, Pam.
that was it, thank you.
All right, so I'll hear a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
So we have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
This